So if you look at the core of testing, hardly any changes, right? So when I talk about this slide, I slightly feel I myself as legacy, the applications or the software products that we have seen, but they actually come a long way. Right? We started off with mainframes, the way the mainframe were tested, the variation that has happened. That led to, and it was very bulky, right? Very data oriented, heavy in systems. And it is just being said, even right now, 60% of world's data is still residing in mainframes. So on the outside, you might see a web app, you might see a mobile app, something that is covering all usability and user experience standards, but the data is still residing in mainframe. Specifically in booking, flight reservation systems, hotel reservations, a lot of it, old ones are still there. Back home. And if you're familiar with Winamp, right? Yeah, thank you. You're all in my age group, I understand. So, Winamp is something, let's say, Spotify, right? That's what many of us used to listen to music. Those days it was Winamp, right? It comes as an exe, you install it. Everything that you could do in a tape recorder, you could do in Winamp. It had its own defects. You could add the same song 20 times, right? Though it had a repeat feature, right? So that was a defect. If you have a repeat feature, you don't have to line up 20 songs. All of you shaking heads, I know you're around your 40s. Then came the web applications, right? So web applications a little more advanced. Maybe that's when half of you in this room would have started using computers and started getting more familiarized with it. Again, web applications also seen different flavors. Started off with client-server architecture, then it came with SOA systems, loosely coupled, tightly coupled, all the jargons, microservices, monolith, all that spoke about. And from there, it took a big leap, right, into mobile applications. Maybe in mid 2000s or 2000, after 2010 or something when the mobile phones. I still remember the day, when my friend got a first Apple iPhone, which did not have any buttons, and we felt it was very weird to send their SMS from there, right? Because I was used to 3310, 3330s, and you need to have that tap feel when you send the message. This one felt very, very weird, right? I mean, it was like open it in the hands of God. Literal translation from him, what I would say. But then that made it more democratic in terms of most people started using it, right? Nowadays, if you want to do anything, right, you want to start yoga classes. First thing that you look for is an app that will help you do it, right? Lose weight without reducing or without going on diet. There is an app for it, right? So anything, it's become part of your lifestyle. Swimming classes online, people do joke about it, but that is also happening. And how was it done? Now we have APIs. The forefathers of APIs are your messages. Then came REST, and then APIs, right? And then microservices. So it is getting better and smaller, and the smaller it is getting more, easier to handle, more easier to integrate, more easier to orchestrate, and all that. Though it comes with its own architectural problems. Then we have these business processes, right? Business processes are things mostly where you have these robotic automation, right? RPA, if you've heard of it. So, there are applications that does, for example, invoice processing, right? Now, that's how the evolution of systems actually happened. How did it affect us, right? As tester, well, mainframe systems, it was very difficult to test, right? You needed to know COBOL. Right? COBOL is a language which is very, very, very super sensitive, right? You miss a period symbol, it will give you 120 errors. This is what happened in my third year engineering lab. When I compiled the code, there were 120 errors, and I'm like, okay, fine. I'm repeating the subject when I look at. But when we debugged, understood that in one line there was one period, and once that was removed, the number of errors went down to two. Right? So it is that sensitive. It's a very contextual kind of. So you need to write job control languages. You run that. It was nothing lesser than a development language. So those days, I don't think there was a very thin line between what a tester does and what a developer does. Yes, right. So developer come tester was the approach. But when application started becoming a little more, uh, uh, when you say democratic, like simpler, is where our developers had was not helping to solve or finding those defects. Right? And the defects were also piling up when it was going into production. We didn't have the luxury of time. You start with a project, it goes into production after 12 months. Right? You can't even imagine, right? We are living in a day where Amazon releases or deploys code every 32 seconds into production. 32 seconds is what they take to change code, to test and deploy it. It's all happening. Right? And on a on a Wednesday morning at this time, all of you here, can I assume that all your scripts are being executed automatically? It is getting integrated from the pipeline, it is getting fetched, and by the time you're back to office, all the reports would be ready? I'll not believe you if you say yes. but that's what Amazon is doing, right? No wonder they have 18 rounds of interviews. But if that is your dream job, be prepared for 18 rounds of interviews. So, so again, for that, there were Windrunner, which was the earlier name. Then it was Mercury Windrunner, then Mercury QTD, right? And then came your when it came to web application, then came Selenium. Anyone knows why the name Selenium? Yeah. So if you're poisoned with mercury, selenium is your antidote. Right? And that is exactly why they came up with the name Selenium. And they made it, it was market disruptor, right? They made it open source. Anybody could use it. It was free. You could add to it. And that community has become very, very, very strong. Right? They're more than 15 years now. And there are a lot of architects who are still contributing to it. There are newer tools like Cypress. There are your Windrunner and QTT have become UFT1 entity, which used to be HP at some point of time. Then UFT bought it, and now it's called UFT1. So it's like the same wine is getting changed into different hands and different owners, and the bottles are getting better. Of course, they're super capable tools as well. It's a commercial mobile application. There was a tool at some point of time called as Monkey Tester. Right? It was an emulator. Right? So it was a software that mimics how your mobile phone actually works. And these are feature phones that I'm talking about, not your you know, smart and touch phone. These are feature phones. So to testing the phone, how does it behave if there is a network problem, if there is switching between CDMA and to different type of services. First time Wi-Fi informs were not popular when it actually started. And then it evolved into Perfecto Mobile. Then came your RPM, which is using Selenium libraries and things like that. Then we started with API and web services. The middleware testing was a big thing because it required you to understand how the architecture actually works and how it was involved a lot of coding as well. Now made it a lot easier. You have Postman, you have Hopscotch, which is an India-based tool that does it. Then for business process, there is the RPA tools. There are things like Blue Prism, Automation Engineer, and a few other tools I could not take on today. But there are many tools that fits into the market. Now, the point here is that while it's not just now that there is technological advancement and disruption that is happening in terms of AI. Disruption has always happened, right? And we have always gotten better. The way we do the testing, the way we approach the testing, everything has got better and bigger and more efficient. Now, as I say, around 2020 beginning, saw a large trend of many of the older organizations. These are like 50 or 60-year-old organizations wanting to move from their on-prem kind of solution to a cloud kind of solution. Right? So that is the modernization. So from breaking the monolith and getting into microservice kind of architecture. So all that was being there was a lot of traction, during the 2020 early 2020. But when pandemic hit, all that got sidelined, and how to get this, every service at the doorstep, right? Food, emergency services, may, education sector saw a very drastic change. Right? We all, were told by elderly and parents to reduce our kids' screen time, right? But when the pandemic hit, the school, their mobile phones and laptops became school. Their school. That was their all of our only window to the outer world because we were all locked up inside. So that is where every business really grew multifolds at that point of time. But you take any business, that is when they also expanded. Now, all of this also, you have to go through testing, right? If you look at that point of view from a tester's point of view, uh, our job had actually increased. People who were working in Swiggy, they were sweating day in and day out because they could not catch up to the pace of the change, and they had deadlines. Byju's went like this, and I won't talk after that. So similar, you take any field, there was disruption. So when we hear about AI/ML, like there's nothing to worry. The only thing that we need to do is we have to stay ahead of that. We need to be updated. Take this as an opportunity to work. So when it comes to test automation, right, or testing, first thing that everybody asks is it manual testing or automation testing, right? It's a very biased question because have you ever heard somebody ask a developer, are you doing automatic development or manual development? Right? Though they are reusing the code from Stack Overflow, now you have ChatGPT and all that. There is a lot of reusability being used, but this is how the paradigm is set, right? There is an automation tester, then there is a functional tester, but without having functional knowledge, without having the domain knowledge, you cannot be a good tester, right? So, slightly digressed. So coming back to the point, so on the test automation also, there are two schools of thought, right? So the first one is between open source and commercial tools. So I did cover about Selenium, RPM, right, for the performance testing. There is JMeter. This is only a very few subset, right? There are multiple tools. Even now, there are many tools that are getting created, but you need to identify which one to go for, right? Now, I think is a good time where all of you are setting your goals for the next year, right? So we decide, okay, I will learn automation. I will become super tester next year. After 3 months, when your project goes and other obligations also set, and this becomes like a clear resolution. It gets carried forward to the next year. And mainly it is because you might have learned something, but you did not have an opportunity to actually utilize it. Clients would say, you are a function tester, you don't have expertise on test automation, so we cannot give you that solution. That need not stop you, right? When you have open source, utilize it. You go to GitHub, download project, use that, put it in your resume, everybody does that. Right? And as long as you have the skill and you can prove that you are the right person for the job, I think there isn't anything that you need to worry. So from a business point of view, when they take a decision, right, this is one key thing that makes that they think about what kind of tool that we go for. Okay? There are, if you look at many of the government organizations, they do not prefer to go with open source because they are not very confident about the data privacy, right? Support system, which you have to go with the community, right? And they do have inclination to go towards commercial. So, but then the commercial tools are not of substandard, neither are open source a secondary, right? All of them do have very, very good features, and we see them evolving every day. Right. So earlier we were talking about features such as sequential execution. Right. You have 10 test cases. Once you start the test suite running, it's one test case, execute the second one, go to the third one. Right. Then came parallel execution using Dockers and containerization, virtual machines and things like that. So we could spin multiple Docker instances. 10 test cases gets executed at the same time. So your time reduction also happens, right? From 50% time reduction also happens. So all the tools, irrespective of commercial or open source, do have that capability. In the open source, you have a little more flexibility to play around and use the feature that you want. Commercial, they give you a package, and even if you do not need it, you still use it. So that's one part. The second part is a debatable A more debatable topic is to go with a coded or a scriptless tool. So if you're an architect is asked this question, they would always say go with the coded tool because the flexibility that it offers. The only challenge is that if you're starting with a tool, basic tool, you will have to build a framework. You will end up doing more of maintenance of your test automation scripts than actually executing the test cases. So you need to take that call. It's not one formula that applies for everyone. So if you are trying to do a POC or you're trying to learn something on your own, it is the result of that is you should be able to convince your management as well as your customer that see we are doing manual testing here. Why don't we try out test automation? And this is the POC I've done, and this is what it takes for you to do, and this is the cost. Okay? So that's the business pitch that we'll have to do. And I would say we all have to have that sales hat also, right? Because sometimes we need to create opportunities on our own. More of a question that is asked by a customer, right? When you are in a customer facing role, you might get an opportunity to talk about it, or maybe you create an opportunity to talk about it. What tool do I use? There are some parameters, it's not exhaustive, but these I would say would be the key ones. First is you need to understand what is the technology stack, right? If it is a Microsoft shop, Selenium might not sell there. Customer will have an inclination to use Azure-based applications, .NET-based applications. Right? And so you need to understand what is how is the land laid, right? The landscape is very important. So maybe their Playwright works, right? Playwright is a Microsoft product which has come recently. It's super good in terms of speed and ease. Works pretty well. I think it is giving good tucker to Selenium also in terms of that. Second thing is skill availability, right? Just because Python is what everybody's talking about, there's no point going and telling or trying out on Python, right? If you already know basics of Java, stick to it, right? That is play on your strength, right? Build on that area. It may meet you or your team. Don't just take you know, some tool and some programming language and try to build something. You'll get bored. Right? Your goal is not going to stay with you for more than 3 months. It will be like your resolution. So that is the tool familiarity and the learning curve as well. A big question is about what kind of setup has it to be? Is it a cloud-based or is it on-prem solution? Right? It depends on who you are working for. If it is a defense-based project, they will not prefer to be on the cloud because of the confidentiality of the data. And there is an opportunity, there might be a slightest of the opportunity if the data gets breached. So they would prefer an on-prem. So you might also, a tool like maybe a Tricentis might not work for the basis hosted on the cloud, or maybe a tool like Nebel will not work. So that is the other decision that you should consider when you are making the choice of tool. This is not just for implementing, but also as a part of your learning and development activities. And that is because there is something called as design thinking. If you've heard of that topic, right? And human-centric design, I think we touched upon that part as well. So that is all about how when you're creating a software, how is it going to apply and make the life of a human being better? Right, that is the core principle of design thinking, human-centric design, and everything like that. So make it more attractive for you, make it more seamless for you, make it more easier, be easier for you. The age of the consumer also will differ. Right, a person who's in his 50s takes maybe 1 week to get used to a smartphone, but somebody who's 5 years old, they'll start using it with the snap of a finger. Test automation is not just about RPM and Selenium and UFT and robotic process and all that, guys. You all have seen the movie 3 Idiots, right? This is a very simple definition of machine, right? Whatever makes your life easier, that is what a machine does. That's exactly the principle that we should also apply here when it comes to test automation. Chrome plugins, they are plenty in number. You sit on Google and search for an hour, you'll find every plugin that you need that will make your life easier. Okay, so edit this cookie, XPath Finder. This is something that is very the XPath Finder and the XPath helper, especially when you're creating your automation scripts. XPath is what you typically try to use, to recognize an object. So this does the scanning of your website. It gives you the full list of XPath, so that you don't have to go through each of the pages and each of the objects and right click, inspect, and do that. So this plugin will take care of that. Something that makes it, other thing that makes it easier, something that we do day in and day out, tracing a defect, bug magnet. So defect is a very static information that we create, right, in Jira or any other tool. Now, there is auto defect creation also that happens when the test case fails. There are plugins are there that will help and create the defects automatically. But this one goes a little extra. It takes a logs. It takes all the information that is required for the developer to analyze and understand their defect. And you can actually avoid somebody coming back and telling you, the developer coming back and telling you that it works on my machine. Right? So if you have enough and more data and analytical information that you can share, you need not hear this explanation. Add that with screenshots, Blaze Meter for your performance testing. Again, performance testing are two types. Right? There is client side and there is the server side. So on the client side, how the application is rendered on the website, how fast does it take, how fast does the first image gets loaded, where are the fluctuations happening. So all that can be done with these plugins. You don't always have to install a tool and break your head trying to learn that tool. You can always use plugins like this. I'm spending a little time on this. I have 2 slides to cover, and that's because this is something that this can be your immediate takeaway. When you go back to office, I believe all your test automation scripts will have completed that report already. But then you can start, trying to use this in your automation scripts as well, or maybe the automation frameworks that you've created. You could use this plugin. Something Funkify, right? I think this is what UX part that Prasad spoke about. So after the UX, there are things like accessibility and usability. Any of you aware of accessibility? Very few. And that is exactly the problem of accessibility. Right? I think there are a lot of reports that says companies have gone into legal issues and paid a lot of fine because their website were not accessible. When you say accessible, people who have disabilities, it is an industry standard word. Check my links. Again, this can be part of your checklist when you are doing just before your production. Right? That is, it identifies broken links in the website. So you have to give your target website address. It does the spidering, and it will tell you how many of the links in that website are not working. Right? Imagine that happens in production, goes out to the customer, right? He finds an exciting offer, an iPhone available for 60% discount. The only button that does not work on it is a checkout. Imagine if that happens. The rest everything is fine. So this is one thing that can definitely avoid a lot of those production issues. And when it comes to production issues, I think once the code or our product that we have worked on, put our heart and soul and blood into it, when it goes into production, then nobody talks about this, right? How many times do you get to get any analytics saying that okay, 1 week after production, right? We have X number of customers. We have X number of hits. This is the box rate. Nobody tells you. The only time they'll remember you is if there is a production defect and if the RCA has to be done. Right? Okay, I need a tester to blame. This is what it is. Okay? So that is also other thing that you can also look at, right? To shift left testing, I think we spoke about. There's something called shift right. There is testing in production. There are e-commerce companies who is doing performance testing on production. Right? They have a particular time stop for that, and the particular user journeys are also defined. And they do at a small scale, but production testing is also being done. This is to make sure that the end user do not face these kind of issues. Loom, a great plugin for screenshots and videos. There are much more. Ahref and Sova Meta. This helps you identify if there are what is your search engine optimization. If you have the right tags, if your searchability is good, what the backlinks, all of this. This is a very good area that I think this is one area where we, as testers, we are wait to get it. Okay. Uh, I, every advancements in terms of technology, AI, ML that comes in, we ourselves we assume that it's for the development team, right? It's for the developers to make better code so that there's no defects. No, it's actually the other way around as well. I mean, it works for testers as well. We'll be able to utilize this and make our testing a little more efficient, right? Instead of spending time to write test cases or maintain automation scripts, if we are able to execute them more times, we'll be able to find more difference. So the first one that I've mentioned here is the test plan documentation, right? So it can be for a test strategy, it can be for a test plan, it can be for a test case writing template. Do you know which language do you have to be proficient on uh, to do good coding and do good automation testing? How does prompt engineering actually work? You write one sentence, the system does not understand it, so you refine it. You add more context to it. You add more details. You add more scenarios, and then you start getting better test cases, right? So that's exactly what is required uh, to make sure that we are able to utilize these products that are disruptive right now. Uh, some of the examples, test case prioritization I did speak about, right? How do you identify test cases as high priority, low priority, medium, what is it? So we need to, I think this example is not a great example. Prioritize the following test case. If you write like this, I don't think you'll get a good response. So you need to re-engineer this, add more context in such a way that the system also understands how the prioritization has to be. What is the basis of that prioritization? Right? About the reporting structure, automation scripts, code review. Right? You could even create prompts in such a way that it will review the code and tell you what is the code quality. Right? Again, you need to define what is the parameter, what is the code structure that has been defined, what is the coding standards. Based on it, as good as doing a peer review, it will give you where if there is any null pointers or any objects that has not been declared, all that information it is able to identify and tell you that okay, these are the red alerts in your code and you need to update it. So that's another thing that you can utilize Gen AI for. I would say that these are some of the very straightforward use cases that we can implement, which definitely will make our life easier. Now, if uh, if you're a functional tester, you can use it for creating your test case templates. You can generate manual test cases. You can also create your test strategy documents. So all that, along with the plugins that you use for uh, creating the defects, right? It will make life much more easier. You can have your weekend off properly, instead of spending extra hours and burning the time. Many of us start our testing journey as a career. I will work as a tester for 1 year and then somehow cast out of the manager or the HR and try to move to development because that is where the good career path is, where good demand is, where good money is. At some point of time, you would even think that, okay, 3 years of manual testing, nothing has happened. Right? Let me learn Java and Selenium and then take off from there. Right? You really do not have to take that route. There are multiple areas within testing that many of us can specialize on. One is definitely user experience. That is on first on my list as well, because this is using the principles of design thinking, human-centric design. There's a lot of hard work, HPR studies also that is happening, which can be applied in testing. And that's one area. I've actually come across on Instagram a person who, whose job is just to create and design login pages. Right? That's all what he does. He creates and defines login pages, and very intuitive, very futuristic. There are 250 design patterns that we have uploaded at some point of time. This is on Instagram. Okay? It's not just your what do you say entertainment things. There are a lot of technical things also that you could use. In fact, there is actually a stand-up team who roast the startups. right? So they are technical people who married who have good humor sense, and they do take some startups as an example and then try to say if it is making sense, you don't need to have a product for it. There's a plugin already there doing that. So a lot of information from an entertainment source also can be. So what I'm saying is just a login page is some is what a designer is focusing on. So definitely user experience testing is one area where there is a lot of future as well. Usability a part of it, like your accessibility. Where does your site fall on site, the text hierarchy, all that Prasad I think spoken about. Then there is performance engineering, a key area, especially when it comes to cloud. There are two things that takes precedence. Right? One is chaos engineering, the other is performance. So chaos engineering is nothing but your failover test. Right? What does failover test do? It starves your product from getting enough resources, right? And sometimes it is done at very fast, right? Maybe from 80% CPU availability, it goes to 5% CPU availability in maybe 2 microseconds, right? Then your system should not crash. So it's a very layman explanation of what chaos engineering or failover test is. So that's something that is very significant on cloud. So if you're looking at cloud, that is cloud testing the AI itself. Right? That this is a very large area. I have not come across any expert who have decide or defined the way how AI has to be tested. Because every time you use AI, it is getting tested and trained. Right? All of these are learning models as well. QA in data engineering. Right? Now people say, I mean, not just now, many years back, they've been started saying that data is a new oil, right? And data testing is something that has not been mature enough. Right? There are still a lot of manual way of things being done, though there are tools. This is one area where you could actually excel in your career. Money definitely will come that way. And then security testing as well. Security testing, again, small area if you consider when you consider the whole functional gambit. Security testing is a small area, but it is very key. This is something that every product team will have to go through before releasing their product into market. So this is again a subset, not a full set of where you need to focus on. But definitely, if you are being a functional tester, if you think that tomorrow I'll start automation and life will change, that's not the only route you need to take. There are different areas that you can expertise in.